What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of bromance. Today, Shawn, this actually doesn't happen that often. Usually, you watch a movie or a thing, and you tell me all about it. The last thing you talked to me about that I can think of that you watched and I didn't was Tiger King. And happy to say, still haven't seen it.
Oh, we got 2 episodes out of that, too.
Still haven't seen it. Well, I don't think we're going to get 2 episodes out of this, but this is a rarity where I have watched something and I am now going to tell you about it.
Oh, I'm excited. I've never seen Showgirls, so I'm excited for you to explain to me what.
Exactly. So, how much do you love Jessie Spano?
She was my favorite of the Saved by the Bell girls.
How the fuck was she your favorite?
She wasn't. I was a Kelly person. Like everybody was a Kelly person.
See, this is why we're friends, because so was I. No, Shawn, what I'm going to talk to you about is something I saw on HBOMax, and you always tell me, hey, let's go find something fun to do. You want to take trips, you want to go places. So I'm going to talk to you about this document. It was a documentary, so I mean, brace yourself. However, I will say, not boring in the slightest.
Yeah, but I think we're both pro documentaries, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I know I am.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you are.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the kind of podcasts and stuff I listen to are the ones where they're like, hey, you want to hear 7 hours about this weird, interesting thing that nobody knows about but me? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I'll listen to it twice on half speed.
You know what? You're never going to need this information, but here it is.
This is a documentary I watched on the newly christened HBOMax.
Yes, and did I tell you about the show, or did you find it on your own?
I think I found it on my own, but I think you might have mentioned it. But I finally watched it. I watched this 2 days ago. This is a documentary, Shawn, and this is about an amusement park called Action Park.
You know what? I'm not a big fan of parks in general. Like,
really?
Yeah, like natural parks, like, like ones you go to that have, running trails and ball fields and like play equipment. Yeah, I'm all for those parks, but like Disneyland kind of parks or Six Flags, not a fan.
You ever been to Disneyland?
Never been to Disneyland. Disneyland might not be too bad because it's more of it's not really like a ride park, but like Six Flags, not a fan. I'm not a big ride guy.
I've been to Six Flags multiple times.
Yeah, the times I've been there, so my mom loves rides, and we went when I was probably like 7 or 8.
And you're absolutely right. Six Flags is a very like ride attraction oriented park.
Yeah. If you don't like rides, there's not really much to do.
No, agreed. Disneyland, I have been to Disney World, and
Disney.
I will say
Florida,
it's much more of a comprehensive, like it's more. Disney World is more trying to provide like an overall experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, they have rides. They have rides aplenty.
Disney World's the one in Florida, right? I always get those mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disneyland's California. Disney World's in Florida.
Disney World has the Star Wars thing now too, doesn't it?
Well, they both do.
Oh, they both do? Nice.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
But I think like the one in Florida has like basically I think the one in Florida is like 6 to 8 months ahead of the one in California in terms of when things get released.
Oh, okay.
But fucking, you're right. Fucking Galaxy's Edge is at Disney World, and they're working on that fucking hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Fully flipping immersive. You're like, oh my God, I am in space.
Oh my God.
Is
Shawn.
that what Action Park is, Richard? Do they you feel like you're fully immersed in a world?
Yes, you're fully immersed in nothing but pain, Shawn. So like they don't bury the lead in the first few minutes of this documentary. So this was a amusement park called Action Park. Apparently it also had the name Clax Action Park.
Was that an official name? Or
no,
official?
that was the moniker it had. The other name it got was called Traction Park. So I think suffice to say that it definitely describes what the experience you're going to get is when you go to Action Park.
Yeah, Class Action Park tells me that you go there, you have a lot of fun rides, and they really improve your class. You know, like you start eating with the right spoons, because if you're fancy, there's like 12 spoons you're supposed to use.
You start eating with a tube because you're not allowed to move your arms because they're in braces.
Because you had so much fun.
Because you had so much fun. There isn't much, I will say there is an overall message that the documentary kind of puts forth that I'll get to probably towards the end or maybe in the middle, because I think it'll be something interesting to talk about. But so Action Park was the brainchild of a guy called Gene Mulvihill. So Gene Mulvihill, we're gonna go all the way back to the 1970s, Shawn.
Ah, yes, the summer of love.
That's right. So Gene Mulvihill started a securities company called Mayflower Securities. Now, Shawn, I don't know. I'm sure you've seen the movie. You've seen the movie Wolf on Wall Street, correct?
Yeah. It's been a bit, but I've seen it.
Okay. So apparently that is the image that you get when you picture Gene Mulvihill. This guy, Gene Mulvihill, started Mayflower Securities in the 70s, and he was the master of the pump and dump scheme, selling penny stocks, which is exactly what Leonardo DiCaprio's character did in Wolf on Wall Street.
That's how he got his start, right?
That's how they made fucking stupid money. They basically like cold call people and lull them into buying these shit pieces of stock. And that's how, and then they'd make these huge ass commissions on them. Okay. So Gene Mulvihill was essentially Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf on Wall Street.
Oh, man. It's not Frontier Leo, but it's darn close.
That's right. This is Action Park Leo.
Are you trying to tell me that this is Leonardo DiCaprio's next movie?
This, this might very well be. This could be the sequel to Wolf on Wall Street, and I think it would be no less interesting. So, Gene Mulvihill eventually was sued and fined by the SEC, the Securities and Exchanges Commission, and was basically kind of unceremoniously drummed out of Wall Street.
So you said he started a security firm, though. So it wasn't like...
He started a securities company called Mayflower Securities. His business partner was still running the company. He was the CEO. His business partner was still running the company, and they were very, very tight.
Okay.
So Gene now had a whole big pile of money, but obviously he wasn't on Wall Street anymore. So what does Gene do? What does a man like Gene Mulvihill do with the time... with the free time and energy he has in the late 70s? What he does, Shawn, is he buys a giant piece of land in New Jersey by a place called Vernon Hills. So this is Vernon Hills, New Jersey.
Ah, Jersey. Has to be Jersey.
Of course, right? Like, as soon as you hear it, you're like, yes, of course it's fucking Jersey. Of course it's New Jersey. So he buys 2 big pieces of land in New Jersey and starts up a ski slope in the winter.
Yeah.
Gets super popular. Gets very, very popular. Well, he needs something to do for people to keep coming in the summer months when there's no snow. So he has the idea, let's build a water park. Let's build a water park, a water slash
like an amusement park kind of thing?
Amusement park, yeah. Now, one of the reasons that he picked Vernon Hills, Shawn, is because, number one, it's super close to New York City. Like, we're talking like 45 minutes, maybe an hour drive from New York City.
Yeah, and I could see in the wintertime all the rich people from New York be like, oh, Buffy, let's go ski in New Jersey.
Right. And in the summer, they're like, oh, we need somewhere to take the kids. Let's go to fucking Action Park in New Jersey. So he decides he's going to build this amusement park in Vernon Hills. One of the other reasons he picks this place is not only its proximity to New York, but it's also getting the area he's in is garnering a lot of attention because in the 70s, Hugh Hefner decides to put one of his infamous Playboy clubs in the same area. So roughly around the same area.
The Playboy clubs, were they like a gentleman's clubs or were they more like, okay.
Yes.
So it was basically a strip club.
I don't think it was a strip club. I mean, they had the bunnies with the ears walking around and stuff like that. It seemed like it was a gentleman's club, but I don't know if it had the strip club. It did not have the atmosphere of a strip club because it was fucking Playboy, so they had to keep the appearance that they were, yeah, we like looking at tits, but I mean,
it's really about the articles. Am I right?
That's right, Shawn. So the area, like Gene is thinking like this is going to be like the next fucking Disney World, and we're going to get all this business from New York, and it's going to be fucking amazing.
You know what? That's actually, yeah, because a lot of New Yorkers travel to Florida. So a lot of them would have been like, oh, let's go to Disney World.
Let's just go to New Jersey. Yeah, it's just go fucking an hour down the road.
These kids will shut up when they get on their ride, and they'll be like, I want to see Mickey Mouse. I'm like, shut up. Let's go see Gene the Bunny.
Exactly. So he buys these pieces of land in New Jersey, and he decides he's going to build. So the park is organized into two separate parks. Action Park is organized. There's Water World, which is like, water slides and all that, like a water park. And then Motor World. Now, in between the two parks, Shawn, is a giant 4-lane highway.
Well, no, actually,
so he puts.
I'm sorry. That's actually exactly how Kansas City's World of Fun and Oceans of Fun is set up.
You know what? That makes perfect sense. So Water World is on one side of the highway and Motor World is on the other side of the highway. Motor World had things like go-karts and speedboat and speed bumper boats and, all this other stuff. So the documentary starts off with the first slide they design for Water World.
And when you say design, I'm guessing they went out, they got an engineer, they got like a safety inspector, they got like all these people to make sure that like when you go down this slide, like, yeah, it's super scary and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. But no possible way that'll happen, right?
So basically it's everything but not the first part, not the second part, yes on the third part, and no on the last part. So this slide is called the Cannonball. I think it's called the Cannonball Chute. And this slide was designed, I think, pretty much by Gene himself, that he just kind of wrote on a napkin.
So, Richard, is it safe to make the assumption that Gene is basically the Tiger King of amusement parks?
Yes, I would 100% say that. Yes. The general theme that you get from what everybody says about Gene is this is a guy that did not believe in rules. Like that was his kind of tantamount philosophy. Like he wasn't a fan of rules.
A man.
So
of
that's
my own
exactly
soul.
what you want when it comes to somebody running an amusement park.
Yeah, you don't want anybody putting any red tape around your slides.
So the way I can describe this first ride that they talk about in Class Action Park is called Cannonball Loop. So what it is, it's a water slide. It's completely enclosed. Okay, so it's think of a giant tube that they run water in.
Okay,
it comes down at, I would say, probably about a 45-degree angle.
Is there a top to it and everything? Like, is it enclosed? Did you might have said that and I missed it.
Yeah, the whole slide is enclosed.
Oh, well, that's safe.
So you go down at a 45-degree angle. It then goes into a full 360-degree loop and then out into what they call a catch pool. So imagine, Shawn, that you go down the slide, you go in a basically like a loop-de-loop, just like you see on a roller coaster.
Uh-huh.
You know, you're up and you're out. So he builds it, and while it's being built, Gene himself is showing up on the construction site, and he's thinking, "Oh, let's change the angle here, and let's move this, and let's do this."
So
things are being changed on the fly as it's being built.
Yeah. So what kind of degrees and stuff, and like what professionalism does Gene have for this?
I already explained that, Shawn. He owned a security company, and then he was drummed out of Wall Street. Those are his credentials for designing an amusement park ride.
Makes sense.
So he gets the slide built. And he's like, okay, well, let's test it. We'll start out with these test dummies. So they grab these test dummies and they start chucking these test dummies down the water slide.
They don't come out the other end, do they, Richard?
No, Shawn, they do come out the other end. They come out the other end, you know, with the head popped off or arms popped off. Things are missing. And, you know, obviously, you know, not the best idea. So he's like, okay, well, it's fine. We'll just change this angle a little bit. We'll, you know, we'll move the height of the slide to here. We'll just move this like this and do this like this. And so once he made those corrections, I use air quotes on corrections, he then decides, all right, well, now it's time to send people down it, right?
Yeah. Did he test dummies
That's
a second
exactly
time
what you do.
after those changes, or?
As soon as the changes are done, he's like, all right, let's start sending people down. Let's send people down.
You're on the
Let's
second
send people
phase.
down it to test it out.
Did he go first?
He did not go first, Shawn. Where is he going to get people to test out his new water slide?
Well, I mean, probably paid admission.
No, Shawn. He has his employees, Shawn.
Ah, yeah.
You're forgetting his greatest resource. Your greatest resource is your own people.
Well, because workman's comp wasn't a thing in the 70s, right?
Fuck no. And these kids are you think a 14-year-old is going to file workman's comp, Shawn?
It's like, hey, you want that $3.50 an hour, right?
Like, you think that they gave a shit about labor laws? Like they would talk about how like a 14-year-old would go in and be like, "Oh, I worked 46 hours this week." Okay, whatever.
Well, what was minimum wage back then? It was probably like $1.50, wasn't it?
Let's see, 1980. I'm gonna say it was like probably like $2.65 or something.
Yeah. Oof, $90 the hard way.
Okay, so it's a good point that you bring that up, Shawn, because Gene decides, or I'm sorry, Uncle Gene, as the employees like to call him, and he likes it. So Uncle Gene stands on the top of the slide and he says, listen, or he stands at the bottom of the slide and he says, listen, any of you guys want to test out this new ride for me, this new slide, whoever tests it out, I'll give him $100. And he's got it in his hand, starts waving $100 bills.
Oh, wow. That's not bad.
He's like, anyone that goes down this slide, give him $100. I mean, and so obviously, like, fucking, you're 14 years old, and some dude's like, "Hey, go down this water slide. I'll give you $100 when you get to the bottom."
Yeah, especially back then. I mean, that's like a week's worth of pay.
Yeah, right. So obviously, kids are like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do it." So these 14-year-old, 16-year-old kids start going down the slide. The first few start coming out, and their mouths are bloody, and they're a little disoriented. Mouths full of blood. Seem kind of out of it, but hey, $100, right?
They're probably screaming too much, like so much fun, and then they just like chomp down on their tongue, right?
Now, Shawn, I want you to imagine how terrifying this would be, okay? Because think about this, all right? So you're going down this slide, and you're going down at a pretty sharp angle, so you know you're going fast.
Yeah.
Like you're going really, really fast, okay? And then then all of a sudden, you just start moving up, and then for a split second, you're in the air. Now, also imagine the fact that you're in complete darkness.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
It's pitch black in that slide, Shawn. You can't see anything.
I'm guessing on that loop too, like as you lift, it's probably like you smack your head on the top, and then
you smack your head on the top, and then after you smack your head on the top, then what do, Shawn? You smack on the bottom on your way out. So you go up, and then you hit the ceiling or the top of the loop, then you hit the bottom of the loop.
Yeah. So you're like, oh my God, it's so quack, quack, quack. Oh my gosh, it's dark. It's like, no, you're outside of the
and also you're completely disoriented because, again, pitch black.
Yeah. I was thinking of like the slides you have at like the parks where they're kind of like the sun kind of shines through a little bit.
No.
But yeah, if this is 1970, they probably just use like PVC.
They just welded all this fucking rebar and PVC pipe together.
Oh.
And so you're in complete black. So it's not like you can brace yourself for it because you don't even know when it's coming.
Yeah. And by the time you hit that first one and you whack your heads, like it's game over. Because you're probably doing at least, 25, 30 miles an hour?
Oh, it's got it. Oh, okay. So, well, like I said, I'll get to that in a bit. So, like I said, the first few kids are coming out. Their mouths are full of blood. And, they're really fucking disoriented or whatever. And he's like, well, that's weird. And he starts sending some more kids down. The rest of the kids come out and they got cuts. There's cuts on their arms and their legs. And they're like, how the fuck are these kids cutting themselves? Like, there's nothing. The slide's plastic.
Yeah.
There's nothing for them to cut themselves on.
Like, are they deep cuts or scratches or like
deep scratches?
So no stitches, but definitely need to be bandaged.
Yes. And they're trying to figure out, well, why the hell is this happening? At the top of the loop, Shawn, is a pad. Because obviously when you're going up and you're in the middle of the air and you hit the top, they're like, oh, we should put some padding in there. So they put this little flimsy pad. The first few kids were coming out mouths full of blood, and they're so like, oh, maybe we should put some extra padding at the top. So they did. They put some extra padding at the top, and the rest of the kids were coming out, cut. And they're like, well, how is this happening? Shawn, it was when they opened the top of the slide that they figured out what everybody was cutting themselves on. Because when they had the original light flimsy padding, the kids were going up and they were smacking into the plastic and knocking their teeth out.
Oh, wow.
The teeth were then getting wedged into the padding. That's how hard they were hitting this padding.
I'm like, so
the kids are getting their teeth knocked out and then wedged into this padding. Then the rest of the kids that were going down were cutting themselves on the teeth.
Teeth are like one of those things that I'm really kind of like, just like freak me out because I've had bad luck with my teeth. So I would be that kid that would come out and be like, I just bit my tongue. You're missing like 6 teeth.
They, the kids were coming out woozy, unable to stand. So Gene brought in a Navy physician to measure the effects of the slide. And this Navy physician said, there are 2 ways as a civilian that you can experience 9 Gs. One would be sitting in the back of an F-14. And the second would be going down this fucking slide.
So I wonder what those kids were like weeks later. Because essentially they had at least some kind of concussion, right? Like they had to have.
I mean, some of them might have. But I mean, again, we're talking about the 70s and the 80s. Who the fuck's paying attention? Who the fuck's giving a shit?
Yeah, like CTE.
What's a concussion?
What kind of cereal is that?
Yeah. During the documentary, they interview former employees of the park. They interview people that went to the park. They did show a clip of Jimmy Kimmel talking about how he used to go to this park when he was a kid. And he's like, every one of my family got hurt going to that park, but we kept going. Like everyone got hurt. Everyone got like skinned up and banged up and scraped up. There was another ride, Shawn, called the Cannonball. Hang on. What was it called? The Cannonball.
The first one was called Cannonball something, right?
The first one was called Cannonball Loop. The second one, oh yeah. The other thing about the Cannonball Loop is, there was a trapdoor at the top, and that's how they would get people out of it if they got stuck. Because, obviously if people were too big, if people were too heavy, they couldn't get the momentum to make the loop.
So they'd just be, and how would you know? I guarantee you the way this park sounds is like the person that's supposed to watch when somebody comes out. Like, hey, did they come out? There's a fatty. It's like, yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was another ride called Cannonball Falls. And, this guy describes it. He says, it looks like a normal water slide, and you're going down it, and all of a sudden you go through a big black tunnel. And he says you sit down, you go down through the water slide. What is not discernible from the top is that at some point you come around the corner and there's a big black tunnel. you feel like all of a sudden you're just going faster. And this guy is like, at one point I went down this slide, I went through into this tunnel, and all of a sudden I start hearing, no, 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 no. He said, I'm going down this water slide, and I enter the tunnel, and I just hear people, oh no, it's coming from in front of you. And so you're like, what's going on here? And then you see this little piece of light at the bottom of the tunnel, and then you just get shot out, and you're 10 feet in the air above a pool. So this thing just, you basically sit in a PVC pipe, you go through, and you get shot out of the end, and you're 10 feet above a pool that you then slam into with your entire body.
You hopefully slam into and don't overshoot.
Or land on somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, good point. If they don't time that right and somebody takes a little bit to get out of there.
And that brings us to the other point, Shawn, is that who's timing it? The employees.
Who are what age?
14 to 16.
Oh.
Do you think they give a flying fuck?
No. Oh, I thought you meant metric minutes.
You think they give a shit about anything, about anybody's safety?
Yeah, I went to like our local pools slide was kind of scary enough, and they didn't care.
The pools, by the way, were fed from a natural spring. They weren't actual like
chlorine pools or whatever.
Chlorine pools. It was all natural spring fed.
That's cool.
Which is, fine. Like, it's all clean and everything. However, that also means that it's spring water.
It's also cold.
It's fucking 17 degrees, Shawn. So you're going down a water slide and then landing in a pool of 17-degree water.
Yeah, good point. Like, how many people are like swimming in it and just get like what do they call it where you get too cold? Hypothermia.
Yeah. They just go into shock.
That's where they encourage peeing in the pool.
They say that, like, you get disoriented, especially once you get shot out of a tunnel. Like, even if you know how to swim, you're so disoriented that you almost forget how to swim.
Yeah. So are all the pools that temperature? Or?
Most of the pools, if not all the pools, were that temperature. Yes. Man. So the rides themselves were pretty much designed by Gene himself, or people that kind of just had an idea. There were people that were kind of rejected by Disney or Six Flags in terms of like, hey, I got this idea for a ride. Fucking let's shoot him out a mountain and land in a pool of spring water that's 17 degrees. And Disney's like, fuck you, that's insane. And Six Flags is like, bye, get out of my office.
Like, Steve, can you please just put the goofy head back on and get back to work?
Yeah, these guys would track Gene down at amusement park conventions and then be like, I've got this idea for a ride. And Gene's like, fucking A, let's do it. And then while the ride's being built, usually he would show up and be like, hey, let's change this and do this thing with it.
Can we make it bigger?
First day of orientation. Can we make it bigger? Can we make it more fucked up?
First day of orientation is like, all right, my name's Gene. You can call me Uncle Gene. And I've got only one rule. There's no rules.
Exactly. That was pretty much his entire philosophy when it came to park design. They had another ride that they tested out that it was basically like a giant ball, a big metal ball that rolled down a track. Okay, so you get inside this ball, you basically get inside this giant metal ball, and you would roll down a track, and this track went down. Basically is the equivalent to a mountain, because remember, Shawn, this same piece of land is also being used as like ski. So we're talking about mountains.
Yeah.
So, the track was made out of PVC. The ball was made out of solid steel. So during their first human tests, person gets inside the ball starts rolling down the track. Metal doesn't like PVC. So the PVC snaps, the ball goes off the track, rolls down the mountain, across the 4-lane highway.
Did it make it across?
It made it across the 4-lane highway and then subsequently landed inside a lake.
What's the escape hatch like on that?
The guy survived.
Did he have all of his teeth?
I believe, yes, he did. They say the ride just fell apart. The guy ended up going down the ski slope right over I-94 and into the swamp.
Well, there's no gators there, so.
There was another prototype. This is a prototype water slide that was inspired by zero gravity. So riders would actually take flight as they plummeted down the hill. I say hill, we're more talking about mountain. So obviously, your first test subject, let's send employees. They said after dozens of successful test flights, one went horribly wrong. One kid went down, and I don't know how he did it, but he found himself going way faster than anybody else. And he went in the air and completely missed the landing.
Oh, well, I've seen some of those like super steep slides where it feels like if you just kind of like lean forward, you're like just going to start flying out like your parachute.
Exactly. So imagine that, but about halfway through, there's like a bump. So that way you can actually go in the air.
No, thank you.
So imagine doing that and then you miss.
Going 30 to 40 miles an hour, if not more.
Yeah. Apparently that kid was okay.
Did he get the $100?
He did have to be backboarded off of the ride, but he no permanent damage. This thing is fucking crazy, Shawn. Now I'm surprised you haven't asked me the obvious questions here.
What's the obvious question?
The obvious question is, who is insuring this?
Well, I figured it's the 70s. It doesn't matter.
Well, obviously, Shawn, because of state laws, amusement parks have to be insured.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a thing back then.
Yes.
So
yes.
Who was insuring this action park?
Well, again, like I said, Gene wasn't really a fan of rules. So Gene, being the smart cookie that he is.
Wait, did he start his own insurance company?
He started his own insurance company, Shawn.
Brilliant.
He started his own insurance company, and that is how he insured himself.
Makes sense.
He started an insurance company out of the Cayman Islands. I believe it was, he put some old English term on it, like, I don't remember.
Insurance.
I don't remember what it was called, like Brooks Brother or like Old World Insurance, like yeah, you know what I mean, like some like
Old World Insurance. That must be ancient.
It's actually kind of funny. During the documentary, they show clips of people, doing stuff, but they also show clips of there was an episode of MTV's Headbangers Ball that they did from Action Park.
Really?
Yeah, so it was the dude and the guy that's hosting, I can't think of his name. I think it's like Ricky something. I think it was Ricky. But then he has Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. And so they're like doing rides and shit like that. They ask him, Jerry Cantrell, what'd you think of the speed slide? And Jerry's like, it was, I'm feeling kind of juicy. And then Lane's like, my fig is completely puckered. Because these slides would go so fast, it basically just shot water straight up your ass.
Yeah. Well, I figured like even between that and being scared, you'd tighten up a little bit.
Yeah. So again, run by kids. They, did whatever. They hung out, they'd fuck in a shed that was for employees only.
Yeah, I figured
that was where everybody like hung out and did drugs. It's one night a year. They basically like took the park over and just, partied and drank all night. And
this seems like what's that movie? Like Hot American Summer?
Wet Hot American Summer.
Like I get that feel of this place.
Yes. I'm 100% positive that this park inspired that movie. Had to. Let's see. I'm talking about the employees.
So are all the employees like 14 to 18, 20 range?
Yes. Yes. All of them, including, people like, say, park supervisors and, and people like that. There is a story of there was a ride where people were not getting on the ride without getting a ticket.
So did all the rides you were required to buy a ticket for?
I think some of them you were required to buy a ticket for. So one of the kids goes into Gene's office, and Gene's like, you know what? I don't remember the kid's name. I think, let's say his name's Tommy. He's like, Tommy. He's like, he's like, this park's getting crazy. I don't think I can take it anymore. He pulls out a cattle prod and he hits himself with it. And he shakes, he lands on the ground, and this kid, 15 years old, is like, what the fuck just happened? And then all of a sudden Gene stands up and he's like, no, I'm fine. I'm just fucking with you. It's fine. Listen, I have an idea. He said, people are getting on some of these rides without lift tickets. So what I'm thinking is that we get a kid that pretends to get on the ride without a ticket, and then I'm standing there with this cattle prod, and then I'm like, hey, you don't have a ticket, and the kid tells me to go fuck myself, and then I hit him with the cattle prod. He fakes like he gets electrocuted and passes out, and then we have security drag him away, and that'll scare everybody else into making sure that they have tickets to go on the ride.
And so is Tommy like, that's a great idea, boss, who's gonna be the kid?
Yeah, Tommy's like, sure, that's an idea. Shawn, they did it. So all of a sudden, the park gets a bunch of angry phone calls because parents just saw a 14-year-old kid get shocked with a fucking cattle prod and dragged off.
What'd he do? No ticket.
No ticket. So we've got some time left. This park was open from 1980. It finally closed down due to the massive amount of injuries reported. Not even, and the most injuries per capita was on a ride called the Alpine Slide. What the Alpine Slide was not a water ride. It was a track that went down the side of a mountain, like you do.
Got the mountain, you might as well use it.
Exactly. The Alpine Slide, there we go. It was 2,700 feet long, descended the mountain beneath one of the ski area's chairlifts. So you would get on the ride, they would give you a cart, and then you would get on a ski lift. You would hang your cart on the side of the ski lift.
Okay.
And then you would ride up to the top of this mountain, take your cart off, and then you would basically go down a concrete track inside, like riding on what was basically the equivalent of a skateboard with a handle attached.
I'm guessing that they had helmets, pads, all those kinds of things that you're required to wear.
Of course they did, Shawn. No. You silly, silly man. But that wasn't the fun part. The fun part was because the chairlift went over the ride.
Yeah.
So then kids that were like, hey, there's Billy. Fucking I hate Billy. Hey, wait a minute. I've got this metal cart here.
Oh, shit.
Let's unhook the cart from the side of my chairlift that I'm sitting on and drop it right as he's going down the track.
Oh, nice. A little like Mario Kart action, except it's not a banana or a shell. It's your own car.
Oh, Jesus. People were getting run off the tracks deliberately by the people above them in the ski lift. And once you went off the track, Shawn, you're basically, you went off a concrete track and into not just dirt, but we're talking a mountain. So rocks.
And those, I guess the rocks, you probably like just lose control and flip. But if it's like a bike or anything, once you start wobbling, like you're just done. Like you're not getting...
Well, especially when you're going down a very narrow piece of concrete with essentially a skateboard with wheels that in terms of having brakes doesn't really. So you get to fly down this thing going, who knows, 50, 55 miles an hour. That's where the first death occurred, Shawn.
So there was a death.
There were, well, I mean, that was the first death.
So this park, you said, started in the late 70s?
I think it opened in 1980.
Oh, okay. And how long,
or maybe late 70s. Almost maybe 79, 80.
so how long did it go for?
It finally closed in 1996.
Wow. So it had like almost a 20-year run.
20, almost, yeah.
All right. So the first death happened on
the Alpine Slide. They say the Alpine Slide was the one that had the most injuries per capita.
So what happened to the person that died on the Alpine slope?
The slide led to the first fatality, a head injury, because there was a kid that went off the track, and as soon as he went off the track, he tumbled and cracked his head on rocks because, you're on a mountain.
And could you imagine, like you go to these parks and you're like, well, of course it's safe. Like, who would have a ride that's not safe? And that happens, like, to your kid or something. So was this where the first lawsuit came in? And ye old insurance company took fight?
And ye old insurance company didn't have any money to actually pay anything. So what, what do you do?
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
Is that what his scheme was? So, like, they'd sue?
Yeah, basically. He basically, like, claims will be filed against an insurance company that had no money to pay. And even in the event that he was required to pay something, he just wouldn't pay it.
Because you couldn't come back on the park at that point, because it's like, oh, you got to go to the insurance company. It's in the Cayman Islands.
Or even if, basically it was by the time that you would actually get something, you would have been drowning in court costs and lawyers' fees that it seemed futile, not worth it. And even in the event that somebody was actually held liable, then he just wouldn't pay. He'd just be like, "No, I'm not going to pay that." The only time he actually paid fines or anything like that was when marshals would show up and physically demand money.
Like U.S. Marshals?
Yes, U.S. Marshals.
What were they demanding money for?
Or I don't know. Because of that would be because of the obvious things like insurance fraud.
So they would just show up and be like, "Hey, give us $10,000 and we'll call it good," because it was the 80s.
Hey, you have a fine for $10,000.
Give us $2,000,
and you haven't paid it for the last 3 years.
So is this his only gig besides Yield Insurance? Was this place?
Well, the insurance company wasn't even a thing. He basically just created the insurance company so that way he could tell the state, "Oh, yes, I'm insured."
Yeah. So how much money was this park pulling in a year?
I mean, the park was pulling in okay money, but you got to remember, Shawn, is that his best friend is still running Mayflower Securities.
Okay, so
where do you think he's getting all his money from?
Laundering.
Jersey.
So he would be working security or for somebody, or how? So how? What
he wouldn't even be like, he basically, his buddy was running Mayflower Securities. That was giving him the money on top of his own personal wealth to basically do whatever the fuck he wanted with this goddamn action park. And then basically his philosophy was like, "Hey, come here, do whatever the fuck you want. Everybody can drink. We can have, he built a festival tent so that way he could have like Oktoberfest and everybody could get fucking lit and hammered and then go drive go-karts."
Yeah, or go down the Alpine Slide.
And go down the Alpine Slide.
Yeah, if you're more limber, then you're less likely to get a concussion.
But his general philosophy was, everybody, come and drink and be merry and do whatever you want. And if you get hurt, like, that shouldn't be my problem. You should have been more careful.
Nice. So you said there was one fatality. How many fatalities were there at this park?
Total, I believe there was 4.
Okay, that's less than what I thought you were going to say.
Actually, let's see if I can get a more accurate number. That I want to say 4. I think the documentary only I think covered 4. There were 2, or there was the one on the Alpine Slide. There were 2 in the wave pool, which was then referred to as the grave pool
Ooh, I've heard wave pools actually just in general are pretty dangerous.
Yeah, because here's the thing, Shawn, is that you go to the ocean, and when you're in the ocean and a wave comes, usually the wave picks you up and then sets you down, right? But the difference between a wave pool and the ocean is that the ocean is salt water. Fresh water acts differently in terms of your in terms of your buoyancy.
Yeah.
So when a wave comes and you're in freshwater, when a wave comes, it goes over the top of you and pushes you down.
Makes sense. I never thought about that, but yeah.
Because of the viscosity of the water.
So do wave pools now, like the one that was in the water port close to us, do they use some kind of like salt water?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I've just always heard they're more dangerous just because there's usually so many people in those that if you do get knocked under, like they have the floaties and stuff, so you end up getting stuck under those.
And let's see, in 1984 and 85, the Alpine slide produced 14 fractures and 26 head injuries.
And so I'm guessing all these people, or at least most of them, tried to sue this guy and nothing happened from it.
Exactly. The fatality that happened on the Alpine slide, I think they ended up settling for $100,000.
That's kind of gross when you think about it. Like, it's like, the life of this, I'm guessing, kid is worth $100,000.
Yeah. The tidal wave pool had 2 deaths. The Alpine slide had 1 death, and then there was a 4th death. That one, I'm not sure. Oh, the 4th death happened on something called the kayak experience, which was in Motor World, where basically you would kayak down a river. Originally, Gene wanted it to resemble Class 4 rapids.
Is that the highest class?
Yes. Yes.
Go
but
big or
then
go
they had to tone that down because human beings, especially untrained ones, can't survive that.
Yeah.
He toned that ride down. However, the rapids were produced by fans that ran underneath the water that would push the water forward,
which would have electricity in water.
That's a very good point, Shawn, because when somebody fell out of their kayak next to the fan that had a short in it, he was then subsequently electrocuted to death. That would be the 4th death.
Was that the 4th and final death then?
That would be the 4th and final death that I think the documentary makes mention of. So we only have a little bit left, Shawn, but I definitely wanted to go over the overall point of the documentary. Was this park fucked up? Sure. Absolutely.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, right? Like a bunch of people like not giving a shit, hey, do what you want, and whatever happens. But really, and I know I can speak. I feel like I can speak to this maybe more than you. I'm not sure, but was that not the sense of our childhoods? Was like, did your parents know where you were 100% of the time?
My parents had a pretty good hold on that. Like, I wasn't allowed to like run around town, even though we lived in a super small town.
Right. My parents were not that way. My parents were, there were days where I would leave in the morning and I would come back at night, and whatever happened in between A and B is whatever happened.
You and Jesus.
It's not like exactly. My parents never asked. They were like, "Oh, I came back alive. I guess we're doing fine."
Well, we're 7 for 7 this week, babe.
Like I did very dumb things when I was a child. Well, I mean child. I'm like preteen.
Well, that would have been
very dumb things.
Early 90s, right, for you? Like, you were...
Yes, this would have been early 90s for me.
So, like, by the time I was of, like, 12 to 13 range, that would have been, like, 98, 2000. I think that stuff kind of started getting kiboshed around that time.
Exactly. And I think that's the embodiment of what Action Park was. And, it closed in 1996, right about the time that parents were like, maybe we should pay attention to where the fuck our kids are.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy, why are you missing 6 teeth?
Yeah. Sean, there were days, like I said, that I would leave and go do the dumbest shit you could think of and then come home and not say a word. And my parents still to this day have no idea. Sean, there was one time, here's a story for you. There was one time, it was the middle of the night. I was with 2 friends of mine. We were hanging around in the catwalks underneath a railroad bridge that ran across the Mississippi River. Across the Mississippi River, Sean.
Yeah, that's like 40 or 50 feet above the water.
40 feet, 50 feet. Now, so number one, there were times that I did jump off of those catwalks into the river.
Ooh.
and then went ashore. That was in the summer.
Yeah.
When it was like really, really hot.
That's still, if nobody knows, the Mississippi is not a safe body of water to swim in. Nor is it clean.
It is not. There's an undertow.
Mm-hmm.
It's
wide, like it's a long swim back.
It's wide. It can be cold. You're dealing with things like snapping turtles, snakes,
debris. Did you run into snapping turtles and snakes?
Huh?
Did you run into snapping turtles and snakes?
I would see them, but I never had to deal with any of that. Digressing a little bit, but okay, so it's the middle of the night. I'm with my 2 friends. I'm with a couple friends of mine. We're hanging around underneath a rail bridge. Okay, in the metal catwalks underneath a rail bridge. Train comes, Sean, rolls. I'm not kidding. Like this train, I'm 5 feet underneath a train roaring over my head.
How loud was that?
It was very loud, especially when you're in an enclosed metal space.
Did you cover your...
Because everything's, steel and everything.
Yeah. Did you have to cover your ears?
I did, and the whole thing's like the whole bridge is like shaking. It was a coal train. So it started to go across the bridge, but then it's slowing down. And so me and my friends have the idea, what we should do? We should jump on it. Let's jump on it. Sean, I leaped onto a moving train.
So how'd you get from the catwalk to the bridge?
You just went under, so where the bridge met the land, it was basically just, you would slide underneath an I-beam and then you were outside. So we went back to where the start of the bridge was.
Okay, I gotcha.
Went underneath the I-beam and then up a little bit of the hill, and then boom, there's a train track with a moving train that's at a very slow crawl.
Okay.
So then we climb up a ladder, and we're sitting inside a coal car as a train is going across the Mississippi River and into the state of Missouri. It's starting to pick up speed now, Sean.
Uh-huh.
We've been on this. Between the train stopping and starting, we have been on this train for about 45 minutes. Just kind of standing around.
Yeah. 45 minutes though,
you got also, like, there was a point where the train was at a dead stop.
Oh, okay.
Like we climbed onto it as it was slowing down, and then we were on it, and then it started to go again. So there I am, sitting on a train, starting to pick up speed. And I have the foresight to think, I wonder where this thing's going. Probably very far away. I should get off of this train. Now that I'm, one state over across the river, I should probably get off this train.
There's no Uber back in these days. So wherever you end up, you're hoofing
No
it.
Uber, no cell phone.
Yeah, good point.
So I climb down a ladder as this train is again picking up speed.
So your other friends are doing the same thing?
My other friends are doing the same thing. I was the third one to leap from the moving train onto the ground.
Oof.
So now, after riding a coal train, I'm now in the next state. I'm probably a good, hour plus walk from a car. It's the middle of the night. It's pitch dark.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm leaping from a moving train. Also, you got to remember the way trains usually go is it's rocks and then the train track. So you have to basically like jump far enough that you clear the rocks.
Yeah.
So you don't land on a rock and break a leg.
Yeah, and you don't want
and hopefully land on the ground with enough, with enough cushion to not break something.
Yeah, you got to make sure you clear that track too, because if you somehow slip and my leg's gone.
Yeah. So did that, landed safely, walked back to the other side of the bridge, went across the entire bridge, back to my friend's car, and we went home.
So did you stand by me? Did you have to cross the railroad bridge part? Or could you
Yes.
Ooh, so you didn't even get under the catwalk?
We thought about it, and it just seemed like way too much work because you got to climb down a giant ladder, and
But was the
it
bridge
just seemed
like in a spot where if a train was coming, you had room, or?
Because that was something we considered. I don't know.
I mean, Stand By Me was out.
So that happened. Is that safe?
No.
Fuck no.
Could you imagine one of your kids telling you that they did that?
Exactly.
Would you flip out?
I would lose my fucking mind,
Yeah,
Shawn.
that's why they all have tags on them.
But that was the dumb shit that fucking kids did. When I was younger, I used to do that urban spelunking thing where you go into like fucking abandoned buildings and shit like that. The end of this documentary, there's a guy and he's like, I would sit with my friends at school and they would be like, what'd you do over the weekend? And I would say, oh, I went to this abandoned mental hospital and ran around in the basement and there were these fucking crazy skinheads. So we ran away from them and one of them was by themselves and he started yelling at us. So me and my friends kicked the shit out of a Nazi and then we left and went home. What'd you do? Oh, I went to my cousin's house. That's cool. And everything was like on the same level. Like that's the crazy shit that kids did.
You said that they talked about that in this documentary, or were you just making that story up?
No, they talks about it in the documentary.
Really? Huh.
Because it illustrates the point that, in the, especially I would say the 80s and the early 90s was an era where kids basically did whatever the fuck they wanted. Like you said, look at Stand By Me, The Goonies.
Goonies would be a good example. Stand By Me took place in like the 50s, didn't it?
I don't.
Or 60s.
Something like that. But like Stand By Me, The Goonies, like where kids just they left the house and ran rampant.
Yeah. You know what stopped that, Richard? Dateline.
What did? Yeah, probably.
It's like, hey, you want to hear this weird story about this kid who got kidnapped?
Probably.
Yeah. Because I mean, I don't think parents are like, oh, I'm not like your parents are probably not like, thinking like, oh, I bet I have to worry about Richard because he's going to get on a moving train and go like an hour away.
Right.
But now it's like, well, I have to worry Richard's going to go out and get kidnapped.
Exactly. But that was that was the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes sense. It's kind of, do you think it's better or worse? I guess is a good question.
I would say it's better because, like I said, in hindsight, that was some dumbass shit.
Yeah.
And that's just one story. I have others.
Yeah, that's
maybe I'll tell them. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Mom doesn't listen.
Well, I'm going to forward her this episode.
God damn it.
She's going to come over and grab you by the ear and ground you.
But Action Park, I feel, embodied that mentality of like, oh, it's, like it's kids. They can go there and do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah,
like, who gives a shit?
If they lose a couple teeth, they'll be fine. They're just
kids. Whatever. They're fine.
So they close it down in 96. What happened to Uncle Gene?
Uncle Gene, unfortunately, later died. However, his son, this was actually, so to wrap this up, Gene eventually lost the park. He had to sell the park due to mounting complaints and lawsuits and things like that. So he lost the park in 1996. It was bought by a couple different groups over time. In 2010, I think it was 2010, Gene got some investors together and actually rebought the park.
So this is son Gene.
No, this is Gene.
Okay. So Gene just recently died, but when he closed the park in 96, he was still alive.
He was still alive.
Okay.
But he rebought the park in 2011.
Okay.
He got the park back.
Oh, nice. So it's just an abandoned park at this point?
It ran under a different name. I think it was called like Mountain Creek or something along those lines. Mountain Creek Water Park. But he eventually did get the park back. However, he then later died. But his son, now owns the park. He got some people together and got the park back. So now his son owns the park, and it I think it runs under the name of Mountain Creek Water Park.
Is it safer now, or is it just as crazy?
Well, obviously a lot of those rides have closed down. It's a very toned down experience, especially from what it was.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can still go to this place that was Action Park. It's now Mountain Park, but the legacy lives on in a more modern way.
Yeah. There is definitely a lot of stuff I skipped over in the documentary. Story between Gene and dealing with the town of Vernon Hills in New Jersey. Dealing with the people there and things like that. Stories of corruption and money laundering. We kind of glossed over that. But for me, it was basically the crazy stories about the rides. The fact that it was run by a bunch of kids with no supervision, and the fact that it harkens to a time where kids basically did whatever the fuck they wanted without parental supervision, and how that's gone. And honestly, I think it had its time, and I'm fine with it being gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might be a little bit more of a helicopter parent than you probably. So.
I watched this documentary with my son, and he was like, that sounds kind of nice. I was like, no, it's not nice. I was like, that's just fucking crazy. I was like, do you want me to tell you that? I'm not going to tell you, but I did stupid things when I was younger.
Whatever, old man. So
I was like, and you will never do those things.
Yeah, for good reasons.
Yes, for very good reasons.
So all in all, would you say this is worth a watch?
It is 100% worth a watch.
Nice. I'll definitely have to jump into it. So I guess then, as we're tidying this up, what are some Richard's closing thoughts on Class Action Park and just Action Park in general?
That being, the experience of being a kid, I think older people romanticize a little bit. Like, oh, it was a time where kids had no, kids could be kids. Yeah, but kids, there's a reason the kids are kids. Like, they don't necessarily have great fucking ideas. And that's why they need parents to be parents.
Yeah. My son.
I certainly would not consider myself a helicopter parent. However, I'm glad my kid has a phone and is able to call me when they're in trouble. As far as I know, they haven't jumped any moving trains or wandered around abandoned buildings. And that's fine. Like, I don't think that my son is missing out on anything by not doing those things.
Yeah, the cons definitely.
I don't think it's making him, I don't think that doing those things, is like, oh, that's, toughen up. It helps him toughen up, helps him understand the real world. No, it doesn't.
Mm-mm. The cons of that outweigh the pros by like tenfold.
Like, there's a reason that kids are kids, and there's a reason that parents need to be parents.
Yeah. Like on that train, you could have ended up in like Jersey and working at this park.
Working at this park.
Trying to make your way back home. All right. Well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping before we go on this loop-de-loop. Visit our website. We're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. And if you want to take that giant step forward, go ahead and join our Patreon account. And we always like to thank our wonderful patrons, Wendy and Aaron.
We would never make your mouths bleed.
No, we would not let you guys go first on any of the rides we develop.
Never, never, never.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, that's all the Bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why not.
Hey, Richard.
Unless you want to go on the fucking cannonball loop.
Yeah, Richard, if you go first, I got a shiny nickel for you.
Ooh. No, why not?